Hey everyone, it's Emily. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my first ever book haul. So I purchased some books in July and August. I decided to do a combined book haul and it's a little bit ridiculous. So I have the books that I got at thrifting and then the books that I bought on book outlets. If there's a second pile, it accumulated and it's getting a little bit ridiculous, so we're gonna do this haul. So I'm gonna start with the ones that I got thrifting. I've been pretty lucky. I've been able to find some really good books for really affordable. So the first one is Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sipentis. I'm sure I butchered that. This book has been recommended to me a lot because I said I didn't read a lot of historical fiction simply because I just never know what to read. So this one has been recommended a lot. So when I saw it at thrift store, I'm like, yes. I know it's during the Second World War, so I will be reading this for sure. Heard only good things about this, so I just need to pick it up. I feel like I don't reach for them, but when I read historical fiction, I always love them, so. Second one is The Storied Life of A.J. Fikri, which I have heard is a pretty darn good book, so I'm really excited to try this. All I know about it is that basically it's a guy that owns a bookstore and he's pretty depressed and then something happens, so hey, I'm all about sad people becoming happy. So I don't know about you, but when I'm like thrift shopping at Value Village, I just love finding books that I've heard about and then I look on Goodreads and they have like over 4 stars and I'm like, okay, then I have to pick it up. So that's what I did. I adore the packaging of this book. This one is Armada by Ernest Cline, which I've heard is not as good as Ready Player One, which I need to purchase this month because I really want to read it. But because this one has worse reviewed than the other one, I feel like I should start with this one. That way I'm not disappointed. I feel like it's gonna be easier that way. So I love the packaging on this one. So I wasn't planning on getting it simply because of the ratings, but packaging for really affordable, I just couldn't resist. So yeah. So all I know is about like science fiction and video games, so I'm interested to try it. I'm realizing that I'm buying a lot of like video games books. I saw this one, which is Wolf in White Van by John Darnielle. And again, it's another one of those science fiction video game book, but it's also a book that is like 207 pages. I'm doing a readathon on the 5th, starting on the 5th, so if you want to participate, grab as many books that are under 200 pages as possible and we will be reading it for that week. So I grabbed this one because I've heard great things about it, and when I saw it was 200 pages, I was like, well, that's it, I need it now. I then got The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is another one of those books that I've heard amazing things about it, but I don't really want to know what's this about too much. I just know that Shadow of the Wind is like the book that he's reading and it's basically after Second World War, so I don't want to know too much because I feel like it's one of those books that the least you know, the more your mind is going to be blown when you read it. So if I remember correctly, basically the guy ends up loving a book. When he tries to read more about this author, more books from him, you realize that it kind of resembles life, something like this. So yeah, this one though. When I saw this book at the thrift store, I might have screamed just a little bit because I was planning on buying this book and getting it for a 4th, 5th of the price, even better. So I saw The Black Prism by Brent Weeks and I've been dying to read this book, and it's one of those big floppy paperback books that I adore so much. I've heard this is an awesome fantasy book and I'm all about fantasy. Apparently one of the things that's really interesting about this book is the magical world. So basically the magic works with different colors, and I think there's 7 or something. What I know is that there's only a few people or just one person that can control all the colors, including the black prisms, the black color, so it's the Black Prism or something. Anyway, I've heard this is absolutely awesome, and I know the 4th book is coming out really soon, and I love hearing that the series is awesome and that there's a lot of books and they're coming out with still more really soon, so I feel like I won't be like missing out and having to wait 2 years or 7 years for the next one. That's why I'm not reading The Name of the Wind, which I will be buying, but I refuse to read them until the 3rd one is finally announced because it's been like, people have been waiting for like, what, 6 years for the next one? I just don't want to be one of those people, so I will be reading this series for sure though. Last two are 2 books from Patrick Ness, so I was really happy. The first one is The Rest of Us Just Live Here, which I've heard it's not his best book, but I just felt like the premise was so interesting. So basically, you know how all those books are like, oh, the chosen one, the one that will save everyone. And that book is basically making fun of it a little bit, the whole concept, and it's just showing the life of like other people, the rest of the people that just live the consequences of all those like chosen ones. So I thought it was a really nice premise. So I'm gonna be reading this really soon. I don't know, it just sounds very interesting. And then I got The Knife of Never Letting Go, again by Patrick Ness. If you remember correctly, that book is basically a society where people can hear each other's thoughts all the time, and then the main character, eventually goes somewhere where you can't, which that's basically all I know about it, but I've heard it's an amazing book, and again, it's a series, and there's a bunch of books out. At least 3, if I remember correctly, so. Okay, the next books were all purchased on Book Outlet, and I just went a little bit nuts because good books, low price. First, I got the Miss Bourne trilogy, which I'm realizing that I kind of regret not getting on the Book Depository at the UK edition, because I feel like the covers are just meh, so I kind of regret that, but it was really affordable, and I've been dying to read this series. Everybody tells me that if I like fantasy book, this needs to be read like ASAP, so I will be doing this. And again, I have the whole trilogy, and I know that Brandon Sanderson is really good to like keep coming out with like more and more books really fast, so I'm not afraid to start reading his books. The books I'm reading this month are always there, by the way, so you can see them. This month I read A Darker Shade of Magic, and I saw the next one and I was like, yep, I need to continue. This series is awesome. V. Schwab's writing is just mind-blowing. I just really enjoy it. Basically, it's about like 4 different London. There's one person that can travel between the world, and there's also some pirates. Well, one pirate's in there, and she's awesome. I'm gonna be reading this in September for sure. I really enjoyed the series. The story is really interesting, and the writing. Let me know your favorite V. Schwab books, because I need to read every single book she's ever written, because that writing though. Another series that I started this month was Cinder, so I needed to continue the Lunar Chronicles, so I picked up the next 2 books because they were pretty cheap and they were both there. So I got Scarlet, which I believe is the second one, and then I got Crest, which is the 3rd book. So I believe they're about a different retelling, because the first one is about Cinderella. I kind of want to go blind. I know it's probably going to be like somewhat linked to the first one since it's a series, but those are the type of books that the less you know, the better it is. But they're big, chunky, like fast read book. I've heard the series gets better and better, and the first one I liked. I gave it, you'll see that in my next video, but I gave it a 3.5, which I thought was good. It just didn't like blow my mind or anything, but I've heard that the next ones will, so I'm totally open to that. The next book I haven't heard anyone mention, but I feel like the premise is super interesting. And it's actually a spin-off of the real series, and I haven't read that one, but I kind of want to read this because it sounds super interesting. It's The Remedy by Susan Young, and basically it's people that go help people like get over like the death of a kid. So they basically dress up like the kid and like learn how to talk and like act like them, and then they help people grieve through this, which I thought it was such a weird premise, so I needed to read this. I haven't heard anyone mention it, but on Goodreads it has some great ratings, so I will be reading this for sure. Another series that I started this month, I'm super late, but I started reading The Mortal Instruments this month, which I read the first one, which was good, but you know, first book of like, technically it's like 6, but like 9-ish books. It's not always the best one, simply because you just learn the world and like the people, so you don't know, there's not that much happening usually. So I decided to pick up next to, well, 3 you will see in a second, book. So I got City of Ashes, which is the 2nd book, and then I got City of Glass, and I've been told to read them in order that they were published. So I picked up also Clockwork Angel, which is the first book in the Infernal Devices series. So is that what, do you agree with that? Because I've been told to read them like that, so that way there's no spoiler. I'm aware this isn't really like related to the same timeline, but it's the same world, so let me know. Do I read them in that way, or do I not? I picked up Everything by Nicola Yoon. It's basically the story of a girl that's allergic to everything, and then there's a new neighbor, cute little boy, and it's basically about that, which I'm not really big on love story, but once again, it's something that's been raved quite a bit on BookTube, and I said I would read pretty much anything, so I will do it. So like I mentioned earlier, I am planning on doing this readathon where you read books that are under 200 pages, so I saw a couple, so I decided why not, because I need some more things to read. So the first one I picked up was The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn, which she wrote Gone Girl, which everybody loves. I've seen the movie, but I haven't read the book, so is it worth it, do you think? Because I hate like watching the movie and then reading the book. I just feel like it's not as fun as doing the opposite. Anyway, so this book is tiny. Like, I didn't realize how tiny it was. There's only 62 pages, so I'm not going to say anything because I've been trying to avoid every spoiler and like any even review about it, because I feel like anything that you will say will just ruin it. So it's a tiny book, like tiny book, and I will be reading it next week. There's one book that was sent to me, so thank you, Arlo Miller, the author. I laughed so hard when I opened your package because this book is basically, well, it's called Cake Face, and it's basically about a beauty channel, like a girl that has a beauty channel on YouTube, which I have one, and basically overnight she gains like 9 million subscribers, so it's basically about that. Can't relate about the 9 million subs, but I can definitely relate about the whole beauty channel. So yeah, I'm gonna be reading this. Thank you so much for sending it to me. I had a good laugh and I will be reading it. So the next book I got was Living Dead Girl by Elizabeth Scott. I've heard it's not necessarily an easy read emotionally. It's like a girl that was taken. So it's another book that is like under 200 pages. It has like 178 pages. So I will be reading this next week. I've heard great things, even though it's apparently a little bit disturbing, but I'm okay with it. October's approaching. I feel like I need to get some books for that, and I got some, so you will see that in a second. But yeah, disturbing books, it's okay during the fall, right? The last tiny books I got was The Last of Heaven by Ursula K. Le Guin. I've heard she's an amazing author, and apparently this book is awesome. If I remember correctly, this one is a guy that ends up realizing that his dreams happens, like he can transform like his dream to reality, and someone is trying to take advantage of that or something like that. So yeah, again, tiny book. It is right under 200 pages. It's like 184 or something. I feel like the books that I own mostly usually have like 300 to like 500 pages, so I thought it would be interesting to read really small ones because I always feel like the story won't be complete in like such a short amount of time, but I've heard this is amazing. I have a few like horror, like disturbing-ish books because, you know, I said October is approaching and I'm going to be reading a lot of those. I don't think I'm going to be necessarily doing a readathon, but just reading a lot of like scary, thrillery books. If you want to do the same thing as me, you can either get the same ones I will be reading, or you can leave me actually a suggestion because the more the better. I have heard by, is it Katrin Chapter Stacks or something like that? I will link her channel down below. She did a review about this book and apparently it's awesome, like really scary and everything, and it's actually pretty short too. Like, I think it's under 200 pages actually. I could include in that readathon, but I might keep it just for October. Am I the only one? I don't like when they do this to the pages. It just bugs me a little, ugh. Anyway, I've heard this is pretty scary. From what I understood, this book is about four or five women. 4 women actually, that goes to Area X, that basically is a place where every time a team is sent there, they just die or just become all weird. So kind of like going into thrillers knowing the least I can. So yeah, if you want to read this book with me in October, grab it. It's pretty cheap and it seems to be interesting. Apparently terrifying, so all about this. Another book that I've heard is interesting, I don't know, the premise just really intrigued me. And it's Bird Box, Josh Mellerman, which basically something happens, like the end of the world basically. When people see something, they start killing people and then themselves. So basically the whole book, the people have to like hide their eyes and not look, and just, I don't know, I just feel like that premise sounds so interesting and I'm really curious to know what the hell happens that they start killing other people. So I'm gonna be reading this book in October too. Last horror book that I want to read is You by Carolyn Ketmus. If I remember correctly, I feel like I keep saying that, but like I don't like to know too much about a book before going into it, but then sometimes you hear reviews that make you want to buy the book so you know a little bit. This one is basically someone stalking a girl and you see the whole book from his perspective. So apparently you are, maybe that's the one, the you that I was saying, like you are the kidnapper or the stalker or anything. Why not? Last 3 books are not scary at all. The first one is a love story. I have heard amazing things about Colleen Hoover, which I've said in the past, I'm not huge on romance books, but I've heard that she's amazing at it. And I feel like it's mostly that I don't like the whole insta-love, like YA type of romance. I just feel like, ugh. But I've heard this one is amazing, so I will be reading it. This is Ugly Love, by the way, I didn't say it. So yeah, the cover is awesome too. So yeah, let me know your favorite Colleen Hoover book, because I've heard the new one with the pink flowers on top is apparently really good, so I think I'm going to be picking that up on the book depository because it was cheaper there than Chapters. Oh, I had another Patrick Ness book, but this one I got on Book Outlet, not Value Village. So this one is The Crane Wife, which I've also heard isn't his best book, but I want to read more of his books, so why not? And last but not least, I've heard so many people rave about this book. It's pretty recent. It's An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir, which I've heard is a great like fantasy, action-packed YA book. And everybody's been mentioning it, and I feel like I kind of want to go as blind as possible into it. But the second book just came out, and it's a pretty thick book, but I do love big fantasy books. And there's like some pretty great author that actually commented on it and said great things about it. So that's it. I need to read it too. So that's it, guys. This was my ridiculous book haul. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if there's any books you would like to recommend me, because the more the better. Don't forget to subscribe, not miss any future videos, and give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And I will see you in my next one. Bye.